So without DP, again, we talked about it. He's literally the encyclopedia on steroids, and he's 1,000 times better than Google. So when making this top 5 list of who's the best wrestler on the mic, I wanted to put, without putting the word wrestler in there, I wanted to put Paul Heyman in there. I wanted to put Vince McMahon in there, and he's like, no, it has to be wrestlers. So eventually, segment top managers of all time. But for right now, it's the top wrestlers on the mic. And so before the break, we talked about who didn't make the top 5. So again, it's Piper, Cena, HBK, Jericho, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So would love feedback on who's missing and who should be number 1 from my top 5. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan in alphabetical order, Punk, Rhodes, and The Rock. And so special guest, here's a longtime friend of mine, Nigel. We used to do a sports show when I was in school at George Mason. And Nigel and I go way back, and love to hear what your thoughts are, Nigel.
Hey, what's going on? How's nice to be on with you.
Hey, brother.
So, we'll talk later about you leaving Austin out of there. But
no, go ahead.
Immediately,
you can.
It's Austin. It'll be a long conversation, but I really Dusty Rhodes maybe a little too old school for me. So maybe it's some recency bias. I would have kind of swapped those two out of there. But when you ask me immediately, I just think of like, who can talk directly into the camera? Like, doesn't need anyone as a foil or anyone to go back with. And I just have to say, it's Ric Flair, man. He could just talking about himself, not even getting into other people, just talking himself up. And the fact that he did it for decades was the greatest. Makes me think about just times of me just watching him just blabber really with my grandpa. Like, so he's been doing it for decades, and I know a lot of people would say The Rock, but I feel like The Rock just needed someone to bounce off of. Like, he could, if you're in the ring with The Rock, he's gonna go into you. But, he's not, I don't think he's like a one-man show per se. Like, where Ric Flair was just like, you don't need anyone else on the stage, I think a lot of people no one really tries to emulate The Rock too much, because it is like a, if you're attacking the guy in the ring with you or on stage with you, you're going to sound like him if you're just putting him down all the time. But everyone wants to be Ric Flair, where they just kind of come in and I have this aura of I'm the only thing that's needed for the show. So I would definitely give the edge to Ric Flair.
It's interesting.
Let me jump in there, House. From the text line, we did over the break there. We got a couple texts. Ric Flair, people are saying that's an easy one. It seemed to be like a no-brainer for our listeners out there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Depending on the age of the person you talk to, I have a couple texts and the names that they give. It's just the generations that they have. And so I'll go through the texts, and for Nigel to be my generation and to pick Ric Flair, that's actually surprising. Just obviously Ric Flair's the man. It's so hard. When I was talking to DP, he said 1, 2, and 3 for him. It's so hard to separate them. And it was actually really hard for me too. So it's pretty cool that DP and I are on the same page of it on who should be in the top 3. Are there other people on the list that you wanted to include, Nigel, or other people you talked about? Or are you just today it's just make sure that Flair gets number 1?
Yeah, and it's funny you say, for me to be on your generation to say Ric Flair, because when I thought of who to put on this list, I went Ric Flair, and then I immediately skipped to CM Punk. He's not been in the game anywhere near as long as those two, but I think, when he talks, I just listen. He might not be the most like, you're not gonna laugh, you're not gonna cry, like, he's not gonna tell you these emotional stories, but he's gonna speak his mind. He's like, damn, I respect that. I get that. It's like it's really cerebral with him. So I and then I'll. But The Rock will move the crowd. I think CM Punk is more to me, because I'm a know-it-all, and he's a know-it-all, so I kind of get that. So without putting too much of my bias in, I would put CM Punk at number 3. You said Rhodes, and who else did you have?
And Hogan.
And Hogan. I mean, just now I'm an adult looking back. Like, what was Hogan saying? What was he saying to me? He was like, "What with the brother all the time, and what you gonna do and eat my?" I mean, it's like, as a child, I kind of got it, but I kind of grew out of it. Like, and I saw even as a teenager when he was like Hollywood and NWO, it didn't quite have the same appeal to me. I don't know if it was like either he got worse or I got older and wiser, but I definitely wouldn't put him over Austin, man. We were gonna have to really talk about that.
Hey, that's why you're here. Now, DP, since he's not here, I want to talk for him. I took a lot of notes, and he said people to consider. Jimmy the Boogeyman Valiant. So I'm not gonna lie, the people that he said to consider, I had to go and watch their promos. And I made my own list. I let DP make his own list, but I didn't change my list. I just wanted to hear what DP was thinking. And he was just spewing all this information out. Jimmy the Boogeyman Valiant, Harley Race, Tommy Wildfire Rich. He said he was Daniel Bryan before Daniel Bryan existed. And because of him, there's a Daniel Bryan. And then the Masked Superstar. He was the original cerebral assassin, he said. So those are people that definitely have to hit up YouTube and look for old promos. Now, when we were making our lists and we were talking about it, he said the 10 through 6 is obviously more important because 1 through 5 is going to be pretty much the same for most people. I know 1 through 3 should be the same for most people. He said Savage, Foley, Stone Cold, Mr. Perfect, and HBK.
Oh, Mr. Perfect. That just popped in, man. Mr. Perfect.
Yeah. And so Mr. Perfect is someone that people don't talk about. I mean, I think with Jericho, what I said for being in my top 10, that's someone that most people don't talk about. He made the list, no pun intended. So if I want to go through DP's top 5, I'm going to go 5 through 1. The most underrated on the mic is Dusty before Dusty. It's Billy Graham. And so I had to go watch YouTube videos of him, and he was clashing with Bruno Sammartino, and he's a really big dude, and he was great on the mic. Thanks, DP. I would not have thought of him. Number 4, Hogan. Hogan did it for so long, he said, and Rocky put him in a movie just because of how good he was on a mic. And the Thunder Lips role that he had, he said that was amazing. So Hogan has to be on that list. And then for 3 through 1, again, he said it's very hard to put it in a specific order. 3 is Dusty. 2 is The Rock for him. The Rock's the greatest microphone performer. And number 1, Flair had the most skill in DP's eyes. He was the man, and he told you why, but he could also do it in high school gyms. He didn't need the millions and the millions of fans. He could do it in a small arena, and it didn't matter how it went. So that's DP's top 5, and then the next 5. What are your thoughts on that, Nigel or Harrison?
I mean, again, you just hit the nail on the head about Ric Flair versus The Rock. And I don't know if you really meant to say millions and millions, because that's The Rock. If The Rock needs that, it's like that's part of his stick, like that the millions and people, the millions, pause, and millions. Well, Ric Flair is like, man, if I'm at the Starbucks grabbing coffee, like, like I want you guys to know that I got the best order in here, and you guys all want to order what I'm ordering because I am who I am. Like, well, The Rock would be like, man, it's not really popping in here. Let me go on somewhere else. And I hold that against him too, that he kind of, not to say he wasn't chasing audiences, but him leaving and coming back all the time, that still kind of left a little, maybe if he never left, I wouldn't hold that against him. But Flair did he wrestled, and that's what he did. He focused on that, and everything he did was kind of devoted to the world of wrestling. So.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I think that list was, I'll be honest, I'm not super high on The Rock. I know he's regarded as one of the best people on the mic, but he is a little closer. Obviously, he was in it for so long, but even as I was kind of watching it, never super big Rock guy. I don't know, maybe at the point when I was seeing him, it was kind of washed out at that point. It was kind of like, like Nigel was saying, in and out, in and out, in and out. That kind of wore down on me a little bit. But we can kind of continue this conversation. We do got to go to break here. I am Harrison Arns here with Haas as always, and Nigel as well, the special guest calling in for us. So we'll throw it to break here. This is The Breeze on 93.7 The Ticket. We'll be back right after this break.